everybody, it's Joe Parr, founder of the Ladies Working Dog Group. Are you feeling stuck with your Gundog training? Trust me, you're not alone, and that's exactly why you need to be here. Every week, we're bringing you the best tips and hacks to make training your Gundog easy peasy. We'll keep it straightforward, no fuss, just actionable guidance that you can put straight to use. So let's get started. Hello and welcome to the first episode in 2025 of Found It, Fetched It. Joining me this week is LWDG featured expert and the brains behind everything that we do in our office, Charlotte Perrott. Today we're going to be talking all about safety for you and your Gundog whilst on social media. So Charlotte, welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
So what people are probably wondering why I've asked the VA to talk about this. So tell people what you do when you aren't saving my life on the internet.
Aside that, I'm doing social media for pet businesses and running an online community of my own for pet businesses who want to get better at social media.
So, Charlotte, we see lots of us quite happily sharing our dogs, what we do with our dogs on social media. And so we're very proud of them. We love everything that we do with them. But what are some of the sort of biggest safety concerns Gundog owners should have when sharing like their training journeys or Gundog related content on social media?
I think it's not just gun dogs, but all people who have all different types of dogs, because people now use social media to target breeds or target specific things. And if we talk about high value breeds or high value, highly trained dogs, then that becomes an opportunity. But yeah, we're all big on sharing our lives on social media nowadays, which is fine. We have access to things like stories, which allow 24-hour glimpses into our life. But there is a concern that you never know who's looking at your page and who's been watching your page for a little while. So I like to share a lot about my dogs online, but you've got to be careful of adding in your location or adding in things that might look that people could identify in the background, or what information about the dogs you're sharing. So as well, as good as it is to share, and I don't mind or don't think people should stop sharing lovely photos of their dogs or putting their dogs in, for example, the Facebook groups we have, it's just making sure that you take the necessary steps to stay safe whilst you do that.
So let's start by talking about protecting our personal privacy. Many Gundog owners love to share their photos. So what are some tips for sharing safely without revealing too much personal information, such as like your locations, your daily routines? What can they do?
The first thing they can do, and I see this quite often, is if they've got an ID tag on the dog or something like that, when you're taking a photo of them, make sure you cannot see that ID tag. So whether you blur it out or draw over it or whatever it is you need to do on the photo, because sometimes I've seen this loads where people have got this on and then you can just pick up where that dog is or pick up a number or pick up an address, a postcode, and then they've got a direct access to your house. So it's not only just for the dog's sake, but for your house's sake, you're giving that information away. So that's the first thing I think is as an immediate point. The second thing is checking your privacy settings on Facebook. So making sure that unless you want to share public to the world, unless you're using a business page, your page is locked down so only your friends can see those photos. And same with the Facebook group. So making sure that when you join certain Facebook groups, you're aware of what level of privacy those groups are. So with the LWDG, I believe it's private. The groups are private, so we cannot see what's being posted inside. So dog theft is not really an issue in terms of posting in those groups because not the entire internet can see it, but making sure the other groups that you're in are locked down and they're not just open to everybody to see. Then looking at things like what is in that photo with you. Is there something that is clearly identifiable from those photos? For example, something in your area that is a local landmark that we could easily pick up where that dog is. Something I like to do, because like I said, I like showing photos of my dogs, is making sure I don't post until after I've left that location. So if I am going to be like, oh, I just went on this amazing training day in X, Y, and Z, or if I just went on this amazing walk, I put up the location after I've been to that place.
Yeah, because it's really very easily done, isn't it? Where we put things up in the moment and we do give quite a lot of information. We know for a fact that insurers are saying to us now, don't put up pictures of your holidays when on holidays because you are opening up that risk. And that's the same if we are going on a 3-hour walk every day. We are leaving a window where people could access our homes or find us very quickly.
Yeah. And like you just said there, it's not just about the dogs then, is it? It's about keeping our home safe. It's about keeping us safe at the end of the day, especially for ladies who go out and they walk their dogs and they train their dogs on their own. It's a safety aspect of it, of making sure that if you are walking across fields on your own through in the day, you're not doing that in live time where somebody could be potentially waiting for you because they know your routine based off your story or know your routine based off your Facebook page.
Because as much as we love to think of our groups and our friends and it all being woolly and very friendly, and for the majority of people it is, and we don't want to scare them, we still have to be very conscious of the fact that if we are sharing information, for example, in our free community, there's 8,000 lovely ladies, or I love to believe there's 8,000 lovely ladies. I cannot guarantee that those 8,000 ladies are absolutely lovely.
Yeah, exactly. We can't vet everybody who joins any Facebook group. Just for example, a big thing at the moment is the amount of people getting hacked on Facebook, where their friend is sending them a message saying, "Oh, can you just grab a code for me?" That hacker is then able to use that code to access their Facebook and then take their bank details and things. So yeah, it's what we think is, oh, it's just a friend or oh, it's just a community of ladies. We don't know the sort of status of that account and whether it's still being used by that person who originally set it up anyway.
I have this sort of conversation with you, with my mum, with my husband all the time. Now you send me a link and I'm like, prove to me you're not a hacker.
Yeah,
And you
yeah.
all get quite frustrated with it. But I'm very conscious that if somebody was to access my information, they can access a lot of other people's information. So you just have to be cautious of what it is you do. Still enjoy social media, but not allow yourself to be put in a position of vulnerability.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I'm not against people showing their lives on social media, putting stuff on their story. I do it myself, but just double checking that photo, double checking that video and going, do I need to post this right in the moment? Or can I get the dogs back in the car and get home or get to another location before I'm like, oh, I did this lovely walk this morning, just so I know there is no chance of that, of me or the dog being compromised.
Let's talk about dealing with online criticism because this is another part of social media. Like we are very fortunate within the LWDG groups. I genuinely never have met such a lovely bunch of people. They are so kind to one another. We don't have keyboard warriors. We don't have people taking the mick or criticism. It is a beautiful place. But that's not a representation of all social media groups, is it?
No, and it's not a representation of all social media. The term trolling is used quite often, where somebody targets your page and leaves very nasty comments or harasses you in certain ways on social media. And I've had it done to me. It's not very nice, but it's very hard because on social media you're open to everyone if our pages aren't locked down or even in the groups. But yeah, you're right. LWDG is that safe space, and I think a lot of women take comfort in that. But if you ever get trolled, you've just got to stop for a moment, think, allow your feelings with there, and then work out what you're going to do. Because the chances are, if somebody's going to the level of trolling you, it doesn't matter what you say back to defend yourself, defend your method of training, or defend your dog, or whatever it is that video, photo is about, status. The chances are they've already got that thing in their head where they're just going to keep going. So if you ever get negative criticism, and it's not a helpful negative criticism because it might be, or did you know if you did X, Y, and Z this way, it might get better results. I'm not viewing that. I'm on about comments where it's horrible. Just delete them and block them because they're gonna just keep going because that's how trolls work.
And the reality of it is, when you say the word gun dog, there is that relation to it. People thinking, oh, that means that this person's training this dog to go out and kill animals. They don't even understand the concept that gun dogs don't actually go and kill anything at all. But there is that thing, isn't it, that we have to overcome. It's not just a dog. If I put up a photo of Megan's push on bringing me a tennis ball, nobody's overly involved in that. If I put up a picture of my gun dog bringing me a dummy, how people perceive those two very similar images is very different.
Absolutely. And it's the same as, for example, if you put the poosh on in a jumper or a t-shirt, people will probably be like, oh, that's really cute. And you did the same to a spaniel. And it would be, why do they need to have this on? Why do they need to wear coats? So if you have people like that and they comment on your things and it's consistent, it's whether or not that really helps you mentally, because the chances are it doesn't. And that sort of negativity is not something you need. You know why you're doing what you're doing. And as long as you are happy and the dog is safe and happy, what difference does it make? And it's the same on social media. If that person had an opinion in real life and they were talking to you, you'd probably just walk away and go, I'm not talking to you about this. But some people feel the need then to, defend why they're doing something. Actually, those people don't really care about what you have to say. They'll just come straight back again.
What's your advice for keeping training videos, etc., constructive on social media? Because it's really important to share stuff, like we encourage our members to do it, for us to help them to improve, because we have an environment where you can use it to improve. But it can be very difficult, like you just said, with the jumpers. Somebody may put up a video of them doing something with their dog and they are learning and the dog is learning, but they can get hugely attacked if they're not perceived to be doing it right, can't they?
Yeah, they can, and it's unfortunate that's how people work, but I see it a lot in breed specific groups or just dog groups where somebody does something their way and everybody jumps on the bandwagon of attacking them. And you've probably seen this, or I know the LWDG has been subject to it in the past when we posted something and you don't think it's going to have the sort of response it does, and then all of a sudden it takes off and people have a million different views. But I think it's just about being open and honest in the caption. Like, for example, if you are just posting a video, just showing off your training that day and you're doing little snippets of your day, fine. But if you are wanting constructive criticism or if you are wanting feedback, maybe it's just worth popping a note in the caption and just saying, I'm really open to any constructive feedback that you guys have. So people know then that it's a safe space to go, you did really well there, but just for future reference, I would do X, Y, and Z. Or have you tried this method? And I think it's about not only the person posting, but thinking about how you already respond to people on social media. Think about how you help people on social media. Do you think that the way you word things is really constructive? Would you be comfortable if somebody posted the same constructive feedback on somebody else's post the way that you write them? So it's a two-sided thing. Think about how you give feedback now and think about how you would want feedback on further posts.
Yeah, because it obviously as well is the fact that the comments are normally in written form, and that tends to be open to interpretation or misinterpretation. Like again, in our group, I say don't use an exclamation mark unless you're celebrating something. And that might seem like, oh my God, that's quite an extreme rule. But exclamation marks at the end of something that could be perceived as negative can be hurtful when maybe they weren't even meant to be hurtful in the first instance.
Yeah, and it's the same as when I read a text message off you or you read a text message off me. Sometimes we'll phone each other and go, oh, is something wrong? And no, it's just sometimes you're in the moment and you're writing something and you're like, I've just got to reply to this really quickly. And it's not meant in any way. It's just because we cannot read the person. And we talk all the time about reading dogs' body language. But when we get a text off somebody, there is nothing to read into. It's just how our brain perceives that message coming through. So it might be meant with complete celebration. It's just how it's worded that it might come across as somebody being a little bit sharp or a bit off or a bit rude.
Another place this can happen is if we are in a group where we are speaking in a language which isn't the first language. So I'm sure it happens with us. We will write something in English in a European group, and it doesn't always come across the same way because it's a cultural indifference. And then that can happen if we have people from Europe writing in our group. It can sometimes seem very different to how it was ever meant.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just that, it's also things like people's levels of emoji usage. For example, my generation, we're really heavy on emojis. So if I don't see a message with an emoji in it, I instantly think, oh, this person's annoyed or this person's sad. But it's another one of the things is how you see it. And we unfortunately cannot do anything to change that, but we can just think and be mindful of how we are writing things. And if it is, like I said, some form of feedback for somebody, just adding in a little positive at the end. There must be something in that video or photo that they put up that you can go, aside these points I've raised above, absolutely amazing work. So that just reassures everybody then that you're not super duper angry with them. But there is when we're thinking or before we respond to anything, it's about looking in our heads and going, could this be that this person's language isn't English first, so they're just trying to get their points across? Could it be that they are an older person giving feedback, so they might not be heavy on emojis? We just have to think as well before we jump to conclusions as if this person is angry with us.
When we talk about building a positive online community, what sort of steps can Gundog owners take to create a supportive and engaging social media community for themselves? Like, what can we do? Like, we touched on a couple of things there, but what can we do to make people see that we are positive about what it is we're doing?
Might be a case of thinking about the structure of your post in terms of the format. So if you're trying to foster that community, go in, here's a reel of my highlights of my training today. And then your next post could be, guys, what do you think about this? This is something I'm working on with my dog. So you're telling me you're open to the feedback. I think if you take those steps and be kind and helpful to other people as well, there's only so much that we can do or change about us to suit other people's and how other people perceive our messages and stuff. But thinking about our tone of voice when it comes to social media and thinking, if this, like I said, if this was said to you in person, how would you feel? Would it make you feel good, or would you be like, oh, that really sucks that person said that to me?
Because the one thing we don't want to do is what might feel like the obvious choice, which is, oh, I'm not going to post anything anymore. I'm not going to show people that side of my life. I'm going to hide the fact that I have this gun dog. That doesn't help us as a community, as an industry, as a sport, long term, if it seems in some way that we are ashamed of what we're doing, does it?
Yeah, and we shouldn't be. At the end of the day, if you're posting videos on Facebook of your dog retrieving a ball, or dog retrieving a dummy, or whatever that looks like for you, there's no shame in that. At the end of the day, people do agility, and they're not hiding the fact that their dog's running around a course or man trailing. They're not hiding the fact that their dog's out man trailing. So there shouldn't be any shame. And I think it goes down again to your mindset towards it. If you go into posting or doing anything on social media thinking, oh, everybody's going to have a problem with this, the chances are, yeah, everybody is going to have a problem with this. So I think about this amazing training you do, it shouldn't be a negative thing, and you should definitely celebrate it. Like I said, none of the stuff that I'm saying is about don't show your dog anywhere on social media, or don't do anything, or just leave the platforms. It's more about just being really mindful that our dogs are, whether money-wise, they might not be high value, but to us, they're our lives. So putting them in danger is a big thing. Putting ourselves in danger is a big thing. Being what can be perceived as cruel on social media or having people troll you is a horrible thing. But if we take the necessary steps and use things like the LWDG group to ask for our feedback, to get those people, those supportive communities behind us, you might find it better than just chucking a video on your Facebook page and leaving it open to everybody to sort of slate you.
Yeah, because you have that relatability. When you pop that training post into our group, we all have context already. We all understand already because we're all doing the same thing. Whereas that same video somewhere else might be like, we have no context here to understand what this person is even doing.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think that's a really important point, is where there is context. If I put up a video, because I do man training with Buddy, of him on a really long line walking, it might be, oh, she doesn't have any recall on her dog. The fact is, he's on a long line walking because he's trying to find somebody, and I'm actually trying to keep up with him. So it's a context thing, is how we see something. And I've seen lots of videos from trainers about this, where out of context, it might look like a really weird way of training, or a really weird dog, or really weird setup. But when you're given the context, you're like, oh, okay, I can see why this trainer is doing this with this dog.
Yeah, and we say this all the time in our podcast to our members. Every dog is different. So how somebody might need to train a thing to a dog might look very weird. But if we spend some time understanding, that might be the only way that dog has learned to do something.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like behaviors. If you saw Daphne, and I put up a video of Daphne's general behavior on a walk, it looks completely different to the Daphne that runs around in an agility course. So you would think it was two separate dogs. So yeah, it's about having that context, which I think is really important. But like you said, yeah, it's all world round, and people jump to conclusions. But if we put our videos where we're asking for feedback in the correct communities, that's going to help us tenfold with getting better responses, and of people who understand it a little bit more as well, which means they can generally give better advice than those who have no idea.
Is there such thing, do you think, as oversharing? Because we're talking here about protecting our mental health, and like social media can negatively impact people's mental health without a doubt. How can people sort of balance sharing content without feeling the need to constantly post, without feeling the need to defend themselves? How can we find that balance where the social side of social media stays social?
It's about checking in with yourself first. If you are finding you've got to a point where you're posting because you need validation of other people, you need the likes, you need the comments, you need those things, and you're constantly refreshing your notifications, I think you're at a point where you are probably sharing a little bit too much, and actually it's down to what you think is right, not what other people are saying. So if you are feeling like you're getting to a point where you don't feel like a training session was successful without shouting it on social media, or you don't feel like that walk went great without sharing a clip of it, then that would be the point where I would look at myself and go, actually, I need to have a break from this, because I'm now relying on other people's opinions of how well that went, rather than judging it for myself. And like I said, unless you were live all day long, there is no way that everybody's going to get absolutely the context that happened before that training session. Something could have happened with your dog and they weren't their best selves, or something could have happened. You could have had major news before you went out training or walking. We can't get that context. So if you're like constantly refreshing those notifications to check that everybody else agrees with you, then I think you're at that point where it's actually time to take a break from social media. And it works a little bit different, because I know a lot of people who listen to this podcast have businesses, and I think if you get into a vicious cycle with your business where you just start posting, then drop off the face of the earth and start posting again, that's a totally different story, because we need that constant sort of consistency with our pages. But if you are just a general Gundog owner and you're posting on social media, then yeah, it's about taking time and taking breaks yourself, because it is easy to get addicted to refreshing groups and refreshing your notifications every 5 minutes. But actually, it's not going to help you mentally feel any better, because all you're doing is seeking validation from others.
Yeah, and there is that side of it where we can spend more time online on social media reading about everybody else having this perfect life with their perfect
Yeah.
dogs. And whilst we have done that and we've had an hormonal imbalance created ourselves, fact, from literally running down our dopamine levels, we then get off social media and we just don't even have the energy or the wish or desire to want to go and take our gun dog out. So it becomes, I was part of social media because this was something I've enjoyed, but now because I spend too much time on it, it's taking my enjoyment away of the thing I was doing.
Yeah, and it is that thing. It's the same as if you went, your dog's not doing really well and you just kept throwing a tennis ball for it, would you get better results? Absolutely not. You need to work out what's going wrong first and go from there. And if you are somebody who before your training session or your walk is on social media, and then the minute you get back you're on social media, you're probably forgetting all the enjoyment, all the good things that came out to that session, because you were so quick to get back to your phone or get back to the social media platforms. And I make a conscious effort now, because my phone blows up with a million notifications a day. I leave my phone at home when I go for a walk where I can, because I know I want to be in the moment and present with my dogs. And unless it is a capturing content exercise in which I do need a phone, I leave my phone at home and just go enjoy the moment. Obviously, if I'm not walking on my own anyway. If you're going out with your family, going out with a group of friends, just think, do I need my phone at this point? Can I just leave it at home? Do I need to check these groups before I go out?
There are things built into social media and outside of social media. Like I've got an app called Opal, which I use to basically, it blocks me through the night from 12 to 6. I cannot undo it. I cannot remove it. I can still use my phone for emergencies, etc. But I cannot override the little thing. And it's done me the world of good, because instead of hearing that didding and jumping to check on something, I can't see it. But I have to go through this whole breathing exercise that asks me, do I really want to go on it? And it's so frustrating. By the time I get to the second breath, I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even really want to go on Facebook anyway. And I get on with something else, and it's really increased my productivity. But there's things like that, and there's things like close friends, which is on Instagram, where we can control how much of social media we are being involved in, isn't there?
Yeah, and there's things like having or knocking off notifications for certain groups. So if, for example, you want to be involved in a specific group for your breed, or just general daily life, if you want to be involved in groups, but you know that group is where you try and find a dopamine rush, or that group is not good for you, but it's one of those things where you're addicted to looking at, just knocking off the notifications for that group and giving yourself time a certain amount of time a day or a certain amount of time a week that you go in and check that group. So being really strict with your boundaries. Yeah, there are things like close friends where you've got that story element where you can share with a group of individuals or just see certain stuff from those individuals, but also making sure that the wider Facebook and Instagram that's pushed out to you, because it is, Facebook and Instagram have ads and that's how they make money. We're making sure that we are protecting ourselves. And even though we're saying these things about social media, I think it's important to note that used correctly, social media is a really good tool to have a positive community with. It's just about making sure that you go into it, like I said, first of all, not using this as something to just self-sabotage yourself with, but using it as a thing that you go in and check when you're feeling good, not using it to validate yourself.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Like the support, the friendships, the love, the kindness that I have got from people I've met within the LWDG, I couldn't think of not having them in my life now. And that was all through social media. I have amazing friends that I've never met face to face. And I find that absolutely fascinating. I've made contacts around the world. My book is in a shop in America because we met on social media. And those things blow my mind as a business owner, but also as a Gundog owner, how you can find things out, how you can see how other people view things. Like I can always remember within our group, we used the word constructive correction. In Canada, the word correction is an incredibly bad word. And I was like, is that really a thing? And it's really, without doubt, broadened my awareness of other cultures, other people, other perspectives. I'm very much more an enlightened person when I go to write something now. And I love that side of it. But it's also the other side of social media, which I absolutely love, is social media done well. I've learned so much education-wise, inspiration-wise. It is really a wonderful place as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. And if you think of the LWDG, without the presence of Facebook and Instagram, would it actually be where it is today? You think of where Facebook and Instagram have been super, super helpful. Okay, there's been times where we're like, oh my gosh, here comes another thing we can't do or we can do. I remember the issue that we had a few years back with the dead game being posted in groups and the groups being at risk of taken down and everybody's like, why? But aside those things, Facebook and Instagram are amazing places for us to connect with people. And you're right. You think of the connections you've made through social media, the guests you've had on your podcast, and the people who've come into the LWDG that would have never known about the LWDG had it not been for Facebook and Instagram. And I think there's lots of people now in the communities where I can go, oh yeah, I know that person. I'm like, I've never ever seen them in my life. And I know their dog and I know their dog's name and I know these things about them and I'm really supportive of them. But they'd live nowhere near. So yeah, there are negative and good things about everything in life. And it's just like I said, working out and protecting yourself first before jumping straight into something and feeling terrible afterwards.
What would you say is a good way for people to use social media in a way where they learn, but they are not misinformed?
I think it comes down to making sure you fact check. So making sure that if you read something, you do a little bit of further research. Now, the last year, we've seen such a rise in AI generated content, videos, photos, and there is now where creators should be labeling their stuff as AI created, but a lot of them don't. And some of it looks really real. So you can feel like, oh my goodness, I didn't know the world was about to blow up in 2 days' time. But actually, it's just about making sure that you look at this with a sort of, does this make logical sense to you? And also fact check with other people. So if you are reading something about this new way of training or this new theory or this brand new concept that's come out, fact check it with trainers or fact check it with your communities and just find out if that is actually true. Yeah, I think it's important not to believe everything that you read or see on social media in the same light that it's very easy to believe that people have a perfect life based on 5 seconds. It's the same sort of thing. Put in yourself in a situation where you go, actually, I'm just going to check this is correct and I'm going to make sure this is right before I, whatever it is, take my dog for a 40-mile run a day because apparently it really helps them steady their brain with training. Probably doesn't. It's just crap that's shared on social media.
Yeah, definitely, without a doubt. Thank you for being a featured expert on this topic. For people to understand a little bit more about how you help people, what is it that you do?
Day to day, I help people see the positive side of social media. So I help businesses, dog trainers, dog walkers, groomers, that sort of businesses, pet businesses, with helping run their social media pages. So a lot of people struggle with promoting their businesses on social media. So a whole different world, but promoting their businesses and reaching the right audiences and promoting in a way that doesn't feel really icky. And I help them with that. That takes up the majority of my time. And then the other thing is the canine marketing support, which is my membership. That was because I've run out of room to help people on a one-to-one basis with all the good side of social media. So I set up a community for them instead. So yeah, I pretty much spend my life on social media, but doing the positive stuff.
You have a fascinating role and you always inspire me in the fact that you help loads of different pet businesses, but you have to put on in a day. I watch you sometimes put on like 17 different business hats. You are 1 minute working with a nutrition company and focusing that, and then the next minute you're on to, I don't know, a dog groomer in Swindon, and then you're on to something else. Do you see all pet business organizations facing some of the challenges that we've just talked about? Because although we're talking about it on a one-to-one level, businesses have to deal with all this stuff too, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they do. It is hard with Facebook and Instagram to strike the right balance, and also protecting clients too. So it's taking the necessary steps. But you're right. In a day, I can speak and do things with 12 different businesses, and then I go into my membership, which has 140 members, and then I've got to put on 140 different hats. So yeah, I think there's common things that I see across which make it slightly easier in a way, because I know this is not just a them issue. And I think, again, on social media, we see businesses and they're like, yeah, my best ever day, I'm now working with X, Y, and Z, and I'm doing all these amazing things. And you can sit there and go, my business is not doing that. But actually, when you're in a community, very much like the LWDG, where you see that other people are struggling with the same things, just feels a little bit better, because with our pets, it does suck when something doesn't go right, or our dog doesn't behave as well as another dog does, or whatever the situation might be. But feeling alone and isolated in business, when you so want your dream to work, can feel like a totally different thing, and it can feel soul destroying. So the one thing I love about the membership is the fact that these people can get together and work through their problems together. So yeah, everybody faces sort of common issues, and the sort of making sure the dogs are safe is not number one priority for a lot of people. But there are ways that we can keep dogs safe and use them to promote our businesses. It's just about putting the necessary steps in place and thinking, how can I be creative with this content?
Fabulous. If you've enjoyed, please subscribe, please review, please share. We are now a fortnightly podcast. We've cut it back a little bit so we can spend more time with inside our membership helping our members, but we still want to bring out amazing content to you throughout 2025. Charlotte, for anybody who wants to talk to you about social media or from a business perspective, how can they get hold of you?
Through Facebook and Instagram primarily. So if you find me, I'm on Facebook. My page is public because I deal with a lot of businesses that way. It's Charlotte Parrott, or you can find me at Pet Business Support. So Pet Business Support, all one word, on Instagram.
Fabulous. We hope you have all enjoyed. We hope to speak to you all in a fortnight's time. And that's all for this week. That's it for today's episode. A massive thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to head over to the LWDG and sign up for our membership. Get access to expert-led training, a wonderfully supportive community, and the resources you need to become a confident and skilled gun dog trainer. Let's take this journey together, because no woman should have to train her gun dog alone. We'll see you all next week.